This takes a bit of time.
I see that you're on. You're on now.
Are you? Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So, okay. Here we go.
Yeah.
So, hello everyone. I'm Dr. Sheila Nambiar. I'm an OBGYN and a lifestyle medicine physician. And I have with me today a very, very exciting speaker and a topic that is of great importance to everybody, physicians, lay people, everyone. So let me just begin by introducing Dr. Angela Pesad Reddy. So, Angela has been in clinical medicine for the last 20 years. And during that time, she saw the effect of chronic and preventable diseases and the effect it had, the death, the debilitation to so many of her patients. And this is when she decided to change career paths. And she learned that major chronic diseases can be prevented using lifestyle medicine. And what she wanted to do was more than just make a diagnosis and prescriptions. So today, Dr. Reddy involves herself in empowering others to take control of their health and well being through lifestyle interventions. She's on a mission to spread the word about the pillars of lifestyle medicine. She's board certified by the American Board of Lifestyle Medicine. And to take this message of lifestyle medicine to the corporate world, Dr. Reddy is currently doing an executive MBA at the University of South Florida. So that's a real career change. Further to take this message to local communities, she's co-founded a non-profit organization called Plant-Based Lifestyle Movement in Tampa Bay, Florida. So what started as a personal quest to enhance her practice of medicine has now become her life's mission, a mission to make a difference to millions of lives. And I can also say from my personal interactions with Angela that she is a born leader, supportive, driven, passionate about lifestyle medicine. And this is why she's here with us today to talk about sleep. So, Angela, to be honest, when I started out, in my own practice, helping patients, include lifestyle, various aspects of lifestyle, what I was concentrating on more was diet and nutrition. But over the last maybe a decade or so, the research is overwhelming that sleep could be as important, if not more important, than diet and exercise. So let's just go through the whole gamut of why, and maybe you could start with just something as simple as how much sleep do we need, and how does one sleep, what happens when we sleep, and what happens when we don't sleep.
First, I want to thank you, Sheila, for having me here today. What you're doing in India is amazing and extremely powerful. For you to take your Saturday evening in India to educate your community, I got to applaud you for doing this amazing work today. So it is my privilege and honor to join hands with you
Thank
and
you.
empower our people, empower the world
Yeah.
of one of the pillars of lifestyle medicine that is so often overlooked and not paid attention to. And as you and I have gone down this journey of lifestyle medicine, and we've gone through all the pillars of lifestyle medicine, although nutrition and exercise and mindfulness and stress reduction and social interactions are all important pillars of lifestyle medicine, sleep is one, in my opinion, and with the studies I've come across, sleep is probably on the top
Yep.
of those pillars.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we're focusing on this today because even as we were in medical school, we were so sleep deprived, even in our training, how many years of lost sleep we've had
Yeah.
as resident physicians going through tireless hours of 36 hours that we did as residents in the US, 36 hours of just being on call, And we wondered often, how were we able to make diagnosis? How were we able to treat our patients with being chronically sleep deprived? How could we recall all that information? So right now, even in our medical schools, we are not taught the importance of sleep.
Not at all.
And the importance of sleep, right? And it's overlooked by so many people that we think that sleep can be put aside. People think that, oh, you know what, let me finish the project today and I'm going to make up sleep tomorrow. But sleep is non-negotiable. We cannot make up sleep. We cannot make up that quality of sleep that we have lost. And, we try to play catch up on the weekends. It just doesn't happen. So the consensus and the general agreement and all the studies are showing that if we are staying between 7 to 8 hours of sleep, that is the ideal amount of sleep that our body requires. Sometimes we can push it to 8, 8.5, but nothing over 9. Anything over 9 will increase the mortality and morbidity as well. So you always want to stay right there between 7 to 8 hours. Anything less than 6 hours is detrimental, and studies are very clear on that. And that's why we have so many chronic disease today and so many comorbidities and so many illnesses, is because sleep is becoming something that we're pushing on the back end to accomplish all the tasks and all the hard work that we are engaged in.
Yeah. What about there are people who say, I can manage with just 4 hours of sleep and I'm doing good, I feel okay, and I'm functioning fine. What would you say to, are there people who can function fine with just, 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night?
So the sleep is over time, it becomes your behavior. This is what you have trained yourself, and you are not aware of how sleep deprived you are until you start retraining your body to do that. So if you're the kind of person that has lived on 4 hours of sleep, you will not realize how much sleep deprivation means to you and what it has done to your health. You will not realize that, you know what, during the day, I'm actually more tired. I feel like
Mhm.
taking a nap in the daytime. These are little subtle cues that your body is trying to tell you that, hey, listen, you're not sleeping well. Therefore, I'm yawning, I'm more tired, I'm not really focusing properly. And that sleep deprivation and those 4 or 5 hours of sleep, you're not as productive
Mhm.
as you will be. So it's actually counterintuitive when you think that I'm going to sleep less, I have to accomplish this, but tomorrow I have so many things to do. You're actually underproducing when you are working with a brain that is not 100%. So you want to get the proper amount of sleep to be able to be completely alert, allowing your body to have those executive functions that should be at their optimal when you are actually sleeping those 7 to 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are not realizing how sleep deprived they are, but they're finding themselves taking naps during the daytime,
Yeah.
yawning, feeling tired, going for that extra cup of coffee in the afternoon, or more tea, or more picker uppers because they're just dragging themselves. So although they're telling you, hey, 4 to 5 hours does it for me, just
Yeah.
observe the pattern of their life throughout the day and their cycle throughout the day.
Yeah. More irritable, more cranky, on,
There,
on
there,
edge. Yeah.
there you go. There
Yeah.
you go.
What about teenagers who, I mean, we know sleep is important for growth. So you have teenagers who are on their phone all the time, computers, the screen. What would you say to teenagers and, those in the growing phase about what does sleep do for you when you're sleeping? What happens?
So the disruption of sleep affects us in totality, not just from one body organ, but multiple. And one of the most important thing is that restorative sleep. When you're going in, sleep is divided into REM and non-REM. So your REM sleep is where the body is doing a lot of dreaming, right? And what the body tries to do during this time, the body tries to go through all the things that has happened in the daytime. It's cleaning up the work, and it's trying to sort things out and trying to say what's going to be kept, what's going to be sent over to the hard drive, what is going to be stored for later use, right? So that dream state is extremely important. So that's the first part. And that's the first half of our night. And then we go into these 90-minute cycles. And in those 90-minute cycles, we are going and we are getting into that deep sleep as well, which is our stage 3 and 4. And this is our non-REM sleep. And this is where we are forming our memory. This is where we are keeping stuff into our cortex from our hippocampus. We're sending it straight to the cortex, and we're keeping that memory that we need. So before we start our day, we want to make sure we have enough sleep. When we end our day, we want to send it to save that information that we have learned throughout the day. And we want to keep that in the long-term storage as well. So for teenagers that are not sleeping, what's happening now is that they are groggy, they are more anxious, they're on stimulants such as caffeine, they are just anxious, they're just jittery and just constantly moving, and a lot of teenagers today are very hyperactive. They're not able to just calm, right? They're constantly moving, constantly, they just can't calm or relax. And that is the anxiety component of sleep deprivation, where we need to sleep in order to prevent our body from developing these hyper reactivities or these hyper anxious situations. And teenagers are suffering, a lot of them are suffering from anxiety disorder, depression, and some of them are just, as you know, suicide rates have gone up significantly as well. So
Yeah.
sleep is our healing moment. This is our restoration. And everybody from babies to teenagers to adults to elderly, we all need to shut it down. We
Yeah.
just need to shut off and we need to go to sleep.
Yeah, good night's sleep. Yeah. And what about caffeine? What can you tell us about caffeine, Angela? That's, the eternal solution to when you're feeling groggy and when, the afternoon pick me up or the early morning caffeine. So what would you say about how much caffeine is okay? And when does one need to really stop drinking caffeine?
So you definitely want to have caffeine at least 12 hours before bedtime, right? Because the half-life of caffeine is anywhere between 6 to 7 hours, but you still have that same 50% still in your bloodstream, right? So you want at least morning time, if 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, your first cup of coffee or tea, but then that's it. Nothing after midday, because what happens to caffeine, it competes with adenosine. Adenosine is what actually allows our sleep pressure to build up through the day. And this is a very important phenomenon, is that actual sleep pressure. Once we have that sleep pressure built up, only then we're able to go into that sound sleep. What caffeine does actually, it causes a competitive inhibition, where it actually occupies the receptors of caffeine. So caffeine stays there, and it steals where adenosine is supposed to be binding. So adenosine does not have that ability to increase that sleep pressure, because caffeine is occupying those receptor sites. So what happens now, the person crashes later on in the daytime, right? So you're drinking coffee, then you crash a few hours later. And then at nighttime when you're trying to sleep, it steals your deep sleep. So you want that caffeine out of your body, because the deep sleep is our memory formation. That is our restorative phase. It's very important that we avoid the caffeine so that we can restore our memory, restore our executive functions, and be able to handle the day-to-day grind that we deal with every day.
And this includes tea too, isn't it? Because tea
Correct.
has some amount of caffeine as well. So what you're saying is, don't have, at least try and avoid tea and coffee post morning, which is not what we see, is it? We you see people drinking coffee quite late in the evening sometimes, and in India the it's habitual to have your coffee in the evening. And I know many people, just like I survive with 5 hours of sleep, I know many people who will say, I can drink coffee and go right off to sleep. So what
Right.
you're saying is that they may fall asleep, but the
Correct.
quality of their sleep is not going to be great, and their memory consolidation and all of that is not going to be
Correct.
great. Yeah.
Same thing with alcohol. Same thing with alcohol. Alcohol
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
caffeine. So people who are drinking alcohol in the evening, right? The thing that happens is that they think, okay, we need my alcohol to fall asleep, right? So they're drinking it to fall asleep. But what happens is that
Mhm.
it doesn't allow them to stay asleep. So
Mhm.
they are being disrupted. They are being awoken a few hours later. So
Mhm.
the sleep induction is there, but that's one component, but it doesn't allow you to stay
Yes.
asleep.
Yeah.
And that's the other part that we worry about is
Yeah.
between caffeine and alcohol. And people who are eating chocolates, dark chocolate is also a stimulant, so that allows you to stay up and also has caffeine.
Mhm.
So these are things that we just need to start saying, hey, we have to protect that that night of sleep, and
Mm.
these are the things that we need to start doing in order to fall asleep at nighttime.
So wouldn't you say, Angela, that, you know, one is of course the awareness that you need to sleep. Uh, the second, wouldn't you say, is the actual prioritization of sleep? Because I think that if you don't prioritize something, you would invariably find any number of reasons not to do it. Because, you know, you feel like there, I know a lot of people, and I used to think that too, that when you're sleeping, you're not being productive because you're sleeping, right? So it's only when you actually decide that, look, my sleep is really important, and 6 to 8 hours, I mean, 7 to 8 hours is important for me. So the prior awareness and then the prioritization becomes really important, right? So, and what would you say about sedatives, which are abundantly prescribed, you know, whether it's the benzodiazepines or the zolpidem kind of drugs? They're so commonly prescribed now. Um, what would you say is, of course, helps you fall asleep, but what are the, you know, the ill effects of taking this on a regular basis?
So that's the effect of trying to compensate for lack of sleep and poor hygiene is
Mhm.
just being able to go on these drugs that are highly addictive,
Mhm.
right? So you can't get off them just like that once you get on these pills, right? Because you start depending on it and you lose your ability to induce sleep on your own. And so we think that we're sleeping with them, but what happens is that you will fall asleep, but you are not going to sustain your sleep. It
Mhm.
will steal that. So you want your body's circadian rhythm, your innate melatonin to
Mhm.
be able to give you that sustained sleep. So the artificial component will not do justification than your own ability or your body's innate ability to produce melatonin
Mhm.
and being able to regulate your own circadian rhythm. That is our internal clock. Without this clock and a regulation of that clock, we're not able to attain proper sleep or sustain the sleep.
So, and does that apply to melatonin as well? Melatonin supplements.
So here again, melatonin is not regulated, right? So what our body, the concentration of our own innate melatonin
Mhm.
can never be replaced by a supplement.
Mhm.
And in supplements, because they're not regulated, the dosages, nobody knows what's in that,
Yeah.
right? And how that works. So the powerful melatonin that we release from our pineal gland, no other melatonin will be able to be compared to
Mhm.
that concentration and
Mhm.
that effect, that sustainability of that sleep over time.
Yeah. Yeah. So what about, so some, you know, productivity and memory and all that is all very well. A lot of people are just concerned about weight. You know, we want to lose weight, and diet and exercise is it. So I want to get up in the morning and go out to exercise because I need to burn those calories, etc. So how does lack of sleep affect our weight? And we're
And
finding
that's $1 million question. And that is the one that needs to be focused on heavily
Mhm.
because right there, if we are not sleeping, so studies have shown very clearly, if we're still sleeping less than 6 hours a night, right, you have 45% chance of becoming obese,
Mhm.
right? And I mean, one and two, clearly one and two, if you're not sleeping and getting that 6 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
So our cortisol level, which is our stress hormone, that is kicked up. And in men, testosterone level drops. So men that are experiencing a lot of issues in the bedroom or erectile dysfunctions, testosterone levels are completely, they just plummet, right? But cortisol goes up. And what happens now is our ghrelin, or our appetite stimulation, and our ability to, so between leptin and ghrelin, these are the two that are in conflict now, because now our body wants to eat more. So we're constantly hungry now, and we're
Leptin and
constantly wanting.
ghrelin, leptin
Huh?
and ghrelin are the hormones for appetite, right?
Correct, correct. So when we're not sleeping now, we have a surge of the ghrelin. And what happens now, we are wanting to eat. We're constantly hungry.
Mhm.
And leptin drops. So that actually helps us feel when we are filled, leptin makes us feel that, okay, we're filled, we're not hungry anymore. Now leptin drops. So we're not able to feel satiated or filled. So now what happens, the two of them are in opposition. So the first thing is making sure that we sleep. Then we go into our diet and our exercise, but sleep is pivotal. So no matter, a lot of people are trying to lose weight and they are exercising, they're eating well,
Yeah.
but they're wondering, why are we still gaining so much weight?
Yeah.
Is because we're not sleeping. And that
Yeah.
is something as simple as not sleeping. We don't, and who doesn't want to relax and just have a good night's rest,
Yeah.
right? That's the easiest part.
Yeah. And for those who are, fitness, those who are really keen on fitness and building strength and muscle, one thing to know is that the weight that you actually lose, if you are sleep deprived, most of it is muscle mass. Which is what we don't want. I mean, there you're probably in the gym trying to lift weights and build muscle, but if you're sleep deprived and if you do manage to lose weight, what you do lose is muscle mass, which is really not what we want at all. So right there, yeah, we need to be sleeping rather than or rather we shouldn't be exercising when we are sleep deprived, because also, Angela, the other thing is injury, recovery from injury, and even the tendency to get injured when you're sleep deprived, right? Whether you're playing a game or you're exercising. So all in all, it just doesn't make sense not to sleep and try and exercise instead,
But
right?
here, yeah, another important thing is when we are trying to prepare for a certain exercise that we're focusing on building muscles, or we're focusing on being a great athlete. Before we start that exercise, we should have had a good amount of sleep. And after we're doing that exercise, that whole memory formation of building those muscles and building those athletic skills, we need to sleep before we build those skills and
Mhm.
after as well. And that's how you compartmentalize, and that's how you are going to retain what you are learning that day. That's the muscle memory that it's being referred to, but that's how you solidify it in the brain.
Yeah. I did read somewhere though that was it Roger Federer or one of those tennis guys sleeps 12 hours a
Yeah.
night. That's a hell of a lot.
And that comes with other repercussions too, right? Studies have shown that over 9 hours of sleep is detrimental to health as well, right? So
Yeah.
there's higher cardiovascular risks on that. There are more mortality with increasing, because you're not moving, right? So you're even strokes, heart attack, they're
Yeah.
increasing when you're sleeping more than 9 hours of sleep. And below 6 hours of sleep is where a lot of the issues are happening with our heart disease, hypertension,
Diabetes.
diabetes,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
memory, depression, and all the things that come, the whole package of our entire being is affected. I mean, you've seen the rampant growth in diabetes, obesity,
Yeah.
hypertension. All of it is related to sleep in
Yeah.
terms of not being able to regulate these systems.
Yeah.
It's a lot of our lifestyle choices, and there's so much that we have in control that we are not taking that control because we're being distracted by so much in society today. Why are we running so much if our health is at stake?
Yeah.
Right? We're not prioritizing sleep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're not prioritizing sleep. And what about immunity? Is there a connection between immunity and sleep?
between immunity and cancers, right? So, I mean, anything that affects our sleep is going to affect our immunity. So,
Mhm.
our T cells are down, our natural killer cells are down during times
Mhm.
of lost sleep, and our ability, we call it when the body's being invaded. If our natural killer cells are not ready, or soldiers are not ready to attack the battlefield, we are not ready to defend our body. So sleep is very important on our natural killer cells, or our immune system, to stay active, to be able to identify the invader that is entering our body, and being able to snap it and buzz it and get rid of it. And just like we are in terms of our alertness behind the wheel, if we're not sleeping and we are trying to respond to an accident on the road, the same thing, our response time is affected. The same thing as our immunity. Our body's defense system is not able to identify the invader. And a lot of people who travel a lot, who are behind, when you're getting on an airplane or you're sleep deprived, the next day, you know, your body is just shutting down. You're feeling that tiredness. You're feeling
Yeah,
that something, that's a time that your body is the weakest, and
yeah.
you will get sick with that sleep deprivation. And that's clear across the board. There is no making this up. The science is very clear in the immune
Yeah.
system. And the same thing with oncological issues or malignancies, right? We are having a higher risk of cancer because of this, more so that the World Health Organization put in that shift worker, or those people that are
Mhm.
working night shifts, they
Yeah,
have a higher risk of developing cancers.
yeah.
And talk about when these malignancies starts to metastasize, there's a higher risk for metastasizing or spreading of the cancer with sleep deprivation as well.
Hmm. And that's quite, I mean, it's like it's common sense, isn't it? When you're sick, for instance, you just automatically want to sleep. You want, your body is telling you that the rest is what is required for you to recoup. So it just makes perfect sense that if you don't sleep, the chances of you getting sick are that much higher. And from personal experience, I know even one night of poor sleep and my nose starts to leak, and I'm, feeling a bit sneezy, and yeah, not too well, right? Not too well. And you're just picking up every bug that passes by. So, yeah, and performance, we talked about, performance is definitely compromised. Though we think we are being productive by saving those 1 hour, 2 hours of sleep, our performance is compromised. And like you said, we're actually kidding ourselves that we are performing better and we've got more time on our hands, when actually maybe an extra hour of sleep could have got us to perform whatever it was at a much better and more effective, in a better and effective way. What about mental health, Angela? You did touch upon depression.
Yeah,
Um, Mental health issues are rampant. Depression is on the rise. It's almost,
sure,
you know.
sure.
So, does this have something to do with sleep? And do mental health issues also affect sleep?
Absolutely. So I'm going to get to that question, but I just want to get back to a little bit on the personal training, because I know you do a lot with training, right?
Mhm.
And we'll get back to the mental health part. But one little thing I wanted to add on the training, people who injure themselves, right? And they are in pain, perception of pain is affected by sleep deprivation
Absolutely.
as well. And our
Absolutely.
body needs, and that inflammation that we're having, the cytokines that are being released, and that inflammation and that pain that we're experiencing, a person who sleeps 4 to 5 hours during the night, they perceive pain completely different than a person who is sleeping 7 to 8 hours. And during that sleep time, our body repairs, the inflammation decreases, and so our body is much better to repair itself when we have that chronic pain. And a lot of my patients, they had so much chronic pain that it actually woke them up from sleep. They were
Mhm.
not, and it was just a bad domino effect. Pain itself wakes you up from sleep, and vice versa. When you don't sleep, you increase the pain,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's very important to find that balance and being able to sleep. But just come back into the mental aspect of sleep,
Mhm.
are serotonin and GABA. These are the two key important regulators of our mood. And the activity of serotonin and GABA, these are actually affected by sleep. So people who are sleeping and having better quality of life of sleep are actually able to not be triggered as quickly or
Mm.
lose their temper as quickly,
Yeah.
and they're able to have that mood stability. And depression itself, if our serotonin is not as effective, we are going on SSRI or antidepressants, right? So it is a domino effect across the board. And there are a lot of studies on the gut microbiome
Mm.
and what we're eating as well, and serotonergic responses and our mood. So it all goes into this beautiful cycle of sleep and eating and exercise, but there is an increase in depression. And a lot of it is coming from us being disturbed from our sleep.
Yeah. Something as simple as that. Yeah.
But here's another thing too: psychosis, bipolar, mania. That's another trigger. People that are working the night shift or people that are up late at night, they have a higher risk of having psychosis. And they have a higher risk of increasing the mania portion of their bipolar disorder as well.
Yeah.
So the component, it's in tandem. It's extremely intricate, and it's extremely important for us to stay on target and keep sleep hygiene and put sleep as a priority. And I'm so glad you're doing this talk today, because we want to make this an awareness. We want to create awareness for our people, and people should take this
And help them
extremely important.
prioritize
Yes,
sleep. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
extremely important.
Yeah. And suicide, coming, back to your mental health, suicide rates as well have been, shown to be higher for those who are sleep deprived. The chances of the person actually taking action, because, like you said, you're not thinking straight. You're not really cognizant and all there, right? And if you're already depressed, if you're already on the downslide, and you're sleep deprived, that's not a very good combination. So, what about Alzheimer's? Is there any, you know, anything that connects Alzheimer's and memory loss, of course? Because obviously, if you're not sleeping well, memory consolidation and all of that is affected. So, is there a connection between Alzheimer's and poor sleep?
So one of the things that happens, Sheila, as we get older, it's more difficult for us to attain the deep sleep.
Mm.
Elderly people are having a hard time sleeping for a longer period of time, right? So their memory is affected, and they are sleeping an average of 5 to 6 hours. And they're those that are able to do the 7 to 8 hours. So there is a connection with memory loss, significant connection with memory loss and sleep deprivation. And we are seeing it in younger population now, people that are in their 40s that are having difficulty recalling issues, and they're having a lot of the brain fog. And that is another component that happens with sleep deprivation, is trying to recall, what is it again that I was supposed to do? Where did I do this? So people are having issues with
Getting
recall.
there.
Yeah, they're not as sharp. And the days that you have slept well, you will see how your body starts to trigger and recall information, because you did the before you went to bed, you took all the precautions, you did your sleep hygiene, you
Mhm.
woke up in the morning, you are ready for the day. And for those people who are constantly sleeping 4 to 5 hours, they are not realizing how sleep deprived they are. And once they start to get into the rhythm of proper sleep, you realize that your recall is so much better, your productivity is so much better, your retention is so much better, your response time, and that's the key, is the response time. Is how quickly we're able to respond to whether we're driving, whether we are exercising, whether we are trying to do a task, our response, how quick we get it done. This is all the executive functions that our body requires, and sleep is the only way that we can restore these functions.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's move on. Does it matter when we sleep? So that was you did talk about shift workers. Does it matter that we sleep when it's nightfall, as opposed to shift workers who tend to sleep in the day? Has that been shown to have an effect on all of the things that we spoke about till now?
So there are two types of chronotypes
Mm,
that defines what sleep is, and those are our larks and our
mm,
night owls, right? So our night owls will tend to stay up later, and
mm,
our larks are, and they, of course, the night owls they stay up later, and they definitely sleep in later. So for those people who are staying up later, they are better off working at a later in the daytime or a later time in the day. For
mm,
the for those larks that are waking up earlier, these are genetics that sometimes we just can't have, we cannot change it, right? It's what our chronotype is, it's what we're built to. And in my life, I've seen my mom waking up early, and I used to say to myself, like, why is she waking up so early? But her entire family, they all go to bed before about 9:30, and they wake up at 5, right? So that's how they, for me, on the other hand, I would stay up till 11, 12, and I would wake up around 7 if I'm lucky, or, if I can go to bed at 11. But I'm most productive in the later part of the day. And
mm,
that's usually where a lot of people realize that we are the optimum. What's
mm,
optimum for you may be completely optimal for somebody different for me. And so we have to realize where our function is and where we peak on that function, and then run our life on our jobs around those schedules. And if we can do that, we are so much more productive, and
yeah,
we are more efficient with our time, and we're happier.
yeah, yeah. So there are a couple of questions actually have started coming in, Angela, and I'll just go, touch upon some of them. There's one that says, is taking power naps good for health? If yes, how much duration?
So the entire sleep cycle is about 90 minutes, right? One sleep cycle is about 90 minutes. So
Mm,
anything that you do, some people that are taking an hour nap, an hour and a half nap, that's not good. That's not
mm,
good. So that will completely break the sleep pressure that we talked about earlier that our adenosine creates. So we need that pressure in
mm,
order to stay asleep and sustain the sleep. So if we want to take a power nap, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, that's all that we need. And again, the power naps is because we are so chronically sleep deprived, right? We're not realizing how chronically sleep deprived we are, but we are tired in the daytime. We need that nap.
So you're saying if you do nap, it ideally shouldn't be more than about 30 minutes.
Correct, correct. Definitely you don't want to make it
You
more
want
than
to
9.
do an hour or
Yeah.
so. Yeah, yeah. So you've been talking about sleep hygiene. Angela, will you just touch upon what is it? What do you mean by sleep hygiene, and what is the prep for sleep?
So the most important thing is the meals, right? The meal timing. And
Mhm,
we don't want to go to bed eating a huge meal before bedtime. So we want our meals to be eaten at least 3 hours before bedtime. And we
mhm,
don't want that to be the largest meal of the day. We should reverse the way we eat, but in this Western world that we live in America here, everything is opposite, where people are eating the smaller breakfasts and they're eating the larger dinners. I know
yeah.
in India you're probably eating larger breakfasts. I'm not sure if you guys are eating more
Not
breakfasts or
really.
larger
No, I
dinners.
think it's just large meals right through.
Okay, okay. So
and and
yeah.
quite late, very late. Dinners are very late in India, which is really, 9, 10 o'clock, which is really not a good thing. Yeah.
Yes, and you want to do it 3 hours before bedtime. So you want to have your meals 3 hours before bedtime, and
Mhm,
you want to cut down on the screen exposure before bedtime, whether it's television, whether
mhm,
it's computers, whether it's cell phones, whether it's scrolling on Facebook. You want to avoid the caffeine, as we spoke about earlier, the alcohol, and we want to decrease all the high carbs and protein intake before bedtime. So we want to cut down. We want to eat more of our veggies and more of our fresh fruits and vegetables before in that dinner time, and not the heavy or the fatty foods that a lot of people are eating at nighttime.
mhm,
So that's one. We want to make sure we have a routine. And this is key, Sheila, is the regular rhythm that we put our circadian rhythm, our body's clock needs to be in tune with our priority. And we have to make sure that circadian or internal clock is set so that every day, every night between 10, 10:30, you're already yawning. Your clock is ready. Your
Mhm.
melatonin was already released 4 to 5 hours before bedtime. So, a lot of people, they're starting to take melatonin, thinking melatonin is going to
Mhm.
kick in and is going to help them sleep. But our melatonin, your melatonin, everyone's melatonin in the daytime, as you go out for that sun exposure, and that's how you're getting this, is a
Yeah.
sun exposure early in the morning and late in the afternoon,
Mhm.
and our melatonin starts to rise as we get into the early part of the evening, and then it goes to the peak. And with that and our sleep pressure from adenosine, boom, we've got two things that work in tandem that we need to completely have working for in our favor. So
Mhm.
that is important. The caffeine we spoke about, cutting down the caffeine, cutting down the alcohol, decreasing the large meals before bedtime, taking our routine by making sure the bedroom is only used for sleep. We should not be watching television in the bedroom. We should not be working on our computers. If we associate the bed with working, then the body automatically thinks we should be working. So the bedroom should be for intimacy and sleep. But these are the two things that the bedroom should be for. And it should be a completely dark environment. So we want all the
And
shades of,
cool
huh?
temperature. Cool.
Very
Yeah.
so, very much
Yeah.
so. Keeping it
Yeah.
cool because our body's temperature, our core temperature starts to drop, right?
Yeah.
And it's very important that we don't want to overheat because when our core drops, we will sleep better. So cooler temperature for sure is important. So we will sleep
Yeah.
better in cooler temperature than we will in hotter temperatures.
And that daylight in early in the morning is really so important, isn't it? Even if you're not going out to exercise per se, even just sitting outside, for about 20 minutes to half an hour in your garden or even on your balcony, just to get the light into your retina does set the stage for your circadian rhythm, and for you to fall asleep later. So just to run through it, you have your daylight exposure, you have a lighter meal before, or rather, the last meal of the day should be light, and at least 2 to 3 hours, would you say, before you plan to sleep?
At least 3 hours.
At
At
least
least
3 hours.
3 hours. And,
Yeah.
and a lot of people, the other thing is that it affects sleep, Sheila, is people waking up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the
Mhm.
night. And that can really break the sleep. And what
Yeah.
happens at the end of the night, our body's in check with how much water we've drank through the day. And
Mhm.
that's a time we're thirsty, or we're eating very salty meals at
Mhm.
nighttime or sugary meals at nighttime. So
Yeah.
we're wanting to drink more water. So these are the things we want to avoid: the salt intake, we want to avoid the sugary foods, and we
Mhm.
want to be able to drink fluids throughout the day so that we don't have to wake up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. I mean, there are times where you're so in deep sleep and you have to go to the
Yeah.
bathroom. That's like the worst
Yeah.
in breaking your sleep cycle, is having to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. I
Yeah.
understand as we get older, our bladder gets weaker and we are going to be more prone, or men are having prostate issues. They have to get up to go to the bathroom, but we can diminish that
Yeah.
waking up by decreasing our fluid intake before bedtime.
Bedtime. Yeah, and if you do need to go to the bathroom for, I mean, if it's unavoidable, don't turn on all the lights. Just
Right.
turn on, a very low or dim light. Let the bathroom light that you're turning on at night be dim so you're not woken up. And definitely don't look at your phone, which is, I think all of us, the first thing you do is to pick up the phone and check the time. That's something you shouldn't be doing. There's another question. It says, when you meditate, people say that you sleep less. Is that okay?
So
No.
we want to be able to relax our mind. right? And sleep is a mindfulness. When we sleep, we restore, we calm ourselves. And meditation, there are a lot of proven benefits with meditation where it restores our mind, it calms us down.
Mhm.
But studies after studies are showing that anything less than 6 hours of sleep is extremely detrimental to our health. And in the US, this happens every single year where daylight savings happens in
Mhm.
America, where
Mhm.
people lose an hour in the springtime,
Mhm.
and that following Monday of that daylight savings time, we have an increase of 24% in heart attacks.
That's right. Wow.
Yeah, and in the fall, what happens? We gain an extra hour. So
Mhm.
what happens? We actually see 21% drop in heart attacks.
Wow.
So when you're looking at the timing and how much time we need for our body system, although meditation is restorative and
Mhm.
it decreases blood pressure and heart rate, and it's wonderful for all of our organ system, sleep still becomes a necessity, right?
Mhm.
It's still, and we can say all we want that meditation makes us sleep less, but we
Mhm.
still need that adequate amount of sleep.
Sleep. Yeah. What about night cramps in the legs and feet? Vidya asks. So she's talking about restless leg syndrome.
Correct. So, I mean, there are many issues that people are having, Sheila, for sleep, between sleep apnea, parasomnias, restless legs. These are common entities, insomnias, psychosis, mania, bipolar issues, anxiety, depression. All these things are going to affect sleep no matter how much we try. Restless leg, you've got to go to the core and you've got to find the root cause of the issues. Is
Mhm.
it an electrolyte disturbance? Is it an iron deficiency? Is it sleep apnea that we're having? So is it is it jerking sensation? So what happens, which is really funny, right? Within sleep apnea itself, most of the time the men are diagnosed with sleep apnea. And
Mhm.
why so? Because the bed partners or the wife is the one that's saying, honey, I think you're snoring too much, or you stop breathing in the middle of the night. So the women pick up
Mhm.
on the men having sleep apnea. But guess what happens? The men rarely pick up that the women are having issues. So, sometimes the men will say, well, I think you're snoring, not sure. But the women are
Yeah.
always on top of picking up that their husband has sleep apnea. So, and people really, really need to realize, and I can't stress
Yeah.
this enough, that
Yeah.
sleep apnea is extremely important to make that diagnosis.
Would you just like to explain what sleep apnea is?
Sure. So
Yeah.
with sleep apnea during the night, there's a cessation of breathing
Mhm.
where whether it's an obstruction that happens or a short neck or just obesity, morbid
Obesity.
obesity itself, people are having a difficulty with the airway while they sleep.
Yeah.
And in that middle of the night, they have sleep cessation or they jump up out of the sleep and they can't breathe. Or all of a sudden you hear that silence and all of a sudden they start breathing again. During that time, they are high risk for arrhythmia and sudden cardiac death. So, with that being said, obesity could lead to sleep apnea. Sleep apnea could lead to obesity. So that's a vicious cycle, whether you are born with a short neck or you have an anatomical deviation or nasal septal deviation. So these are the anatomical issues that we can have that lead to sleep apnea. And then we can and when you have sleep apnea, and you're not able to be diagnosed or you don't have a CPAP machine to help you sleep through the night, your cortisol rises and your obesity increases. So, for that being said, it is important for the diagnosis to be made because the restless leg could also be one of the side effects of having the sleep apnea too. So people who are feeling that they are falling asleep in the middle of the daytime, they see themselves having excessive
Mhm.
daytime naps, or they're feeling very tired and they are obese or overweight, they should be getting a sleep specialist to see them
See
and
them.
make the diagnosis. But here's what happens, Sheila. Today, just making a diagnosis of sleep apnea has become so commercialized that
Mhm.
what they're selling is the better gadget to prevent snoring,
Mhm.
right? That's not the root cause of the issue, not the gadget to prevent the snoring, but finding out why are you snoring to begin with.
Yeah. So there was a
So
question
people,
in that regard. Does a person who snores get good sleep in the absence of apnea?
So the snoring, so people who are woken up by the snoring, so they have to make sure, are they sure that they are not having sleep apnea,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So a person who could have a deviated septum, or somebody that is a mouth breather, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they can snore, or the position that they put their
Get
head in while they're sleeping. So they have to be sure that there's no sleep apnea there. The loud snoring may wake up the bed partner, right? So
Yeah.
it right? So we have to make sure that's not there. But how do we know that you're not getting enough sleep if you're snoring? You will have to know if you're having that excessive daytime. Um, uh,
Drowsing.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There was another question which was quite interesting. She wants to know if dreams are related to disturbed sleep or vice versa.
So dreams, it's very important to dream. And sometimes they may have dreams that we try to put in our subconscious that comes back over time and wakes us up from the sleep. And when that happens, some people dream and it becomes extremely violent, where they will hit their bed partner or they will jump out of the bed. And these are instances where cognitive behavioral therapy needs to be implemented, or they need to see a sleep specialist or
Mhm.
a psychiatrist. And these vivid dreams could be post-traumatic stress disorders. I've had patients that would dream about their issues that they faced in their life, and it would come back in the dreams. And
Mhm.
these dreams would be so real that they would wake up sweating with palpitation, and the trauma of those subconscious memories will interrupt those sleep. So these people who are having issues with sleep being disturbed through these dreams, they need to seek counseling and they need to get help.
Help, yeah. So does a thyroid problem have anything to do with oversleeping? That's a good question.
So underactive thyroid, right? When we're feeling tired, we are going to feel like we want to sleep more.
A
And
lot.
thyroid hormones itself will also cause dysregulation of our sleep cycle too.
Mhm.
So it's important for people who are having endocrinological issues to be diagnosed and treated, because our body works in tandem with its hormones. And if
Yeah,
our hormones are not regulated, it's going to affect us on multiple levels, not just sleep.
yeah, yeah. How much sleep is optimum for a person in their 40s? You did talk about this. Please share your views.
Yeah. In their 40s, we are in our 40s, we feel that okay, that's a time that we can save the world, we can do it all. And we push as hard to do as much as we can in our 40s. And we are going to compromise on sleep. And because we have so much that we want to accomplish in life that we push sleep in the back burner. But it is important that we stick to the regimen. We are not adolescents. So adolescents are going to require more. They're going to want about 9 to 10 hours of sleep. But
Mhm.
in our 40s, it is recommended to still stay in the 7 to 8 hour ballpark. So we're not going to compromise on that number. That is where the bell curve drops,
Yeah,
and you will have your outliers for sure, that will want 8.5 hours of sleep. But that's fine. 8.5 hours is perfectly fine. I don't know when the last time I had 8.5 hours of sleep, but I would love to go back to the days when 8.5 hours was there. But once you become a mom and you have children, things change.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So Anita says, great info. Thank you. Super. Thanks. In menopause, sometimes you get hot flushes. How can we reduce the hot flushes at night?
So that, again, this is going to come, and that comes in where we talk a lot about is the plant-based lifestyle
Yeah.
and what we're eating on the plant-based platform. There are women that have been put into studies with hot flashes that within a week of going on a plant-based diet and a non-animal product diet, the hot flashes disappeared. And I've seen it around my community where women have changed their complete lifestyle and completely eaten clean with just a plant-based lifestyle, and the
Mm,
hot flashes minimizes. It's just incredible. I had patients where I've seen their life transform completely with transferring their diets from a animal-based diet to a complete whole food plant-based diet. So diet, exercise, sleep, they're all extremely critical for how
Mhm.
we deal with hot flashes.
Yeah, sorry. So then there's another question. Does stress and worry affect our sleep?
Oh yeah, Sheila, that is, as I mean, within the women, we worry a lot. I'm sure men do too, but from what I've seen in my community, women take a
Mhm.
lot of things to heart, and a lot of things affect them, and we allow the rental of property in our brain. So we have free real estate in our brain, and we are actually allowing people to disturb what goes on in our head. And it stays in there. So what I look at it as people when we have things bothering our mind, we are allowing people to live rent
Rent.
free in our brain, right? And
I love
so
that.
it's
Yeah.
it's extremely important to get rid of all those negativity or stressors that are in there,
Yeah.
and you devise a plan. If there is someone that is affecting you or bothering you, we need to just cut loose. We need to cut loose of anyone that's toxic to our life,
Mhm.
anyone that creates anxiety, increase stress in our life. We need to cut loose. And if we're not able to cut loose, we have to be able to find a way to meditate, be more mindful, and to do other things with stress reduction. And if that doesn't work, we need to get a professional who does cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah.
And CBT has done really well for people who suffer with depression,
Mhm.
anxiety, and having increased stress and not being able to sleep. A
Mhm.
sleep a CBT therapist or a cognitive behavior
Well,
therapist is amazing.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I think, if you are having several sleepless nights in a row, and if you're not able to sleep, your body's probably telling you that something's not quite right. If you have the opportunity, I mean, I'm not talking about a situation where you're not able to sleep because you're time restricted, but if you have the opportunity to sleep but you're not able to fall asleep, or you fall asleep and then you keep waking up early and you're restless and you're thinking about all kinds of things, it's a sign for you to stop and take stock, maybe, and consider, like you said, somebody in your life that's toxic and creating enough negativity for you to have to, allow them to stay rent free and create all that havoc in your head. So it may be an opportunity for you to stop and take stock, and definitely see a therapist if that's possible. So these are all really signs that, I always say the body is really, really intelligent. It just gives you those signs that tell you that you need to take a notice that something's not quite right. Because if things are going right, you should be able, and if you're eating well, if you've exercised enough, if you've got in the daylight, all of that, you should be able to sleep, right? Because frankly, Angela, even in all our lives, I'm sure, and I know certainly in mine, I know that when there is inordinate amount of stress, I may fall asleep because I'm exhausted, but you get up and you're restless and you can't go back to sleep, and then you're tossing and you're turning, and intellectually, it's not going to change anything if you worry about it, but there it goes, round and round in
Yeah.
your head.
Shutting off the mind is one of the hardest things,
Yes,
Sheila.
yes,
Shutting it off because
absolutely,
but
absolutely.
the thing is that we want to create the sleep pressure. So if we can create that sleep pressure in the daytime, get rid of the caffeine, right? So we have to be able
Mhm.
to be intuitive in how we are going to be able to create that sleep pressure that when we hit the pillow, we're gone. So we can do it by avoiding the caffeine,
Mhm.
not taking the daytime naps, and
Mhm.
increasing our exercise. So if we can just work on the exercise component and decreasing the caffeine consumption and avoiding the daytime nap and avoiding the heavy meals at bedtime, we are really building up the sleep pressure. We are helping our body get into that mood. And then we're doing the sleep hygiene, but we're mentally exhausted, as you said. And now we have to be physically exhausted.
Yeah.
So we are trying every bit way to protect our body so that it sleeps and it shuts off that negative thought that is in our mind that it has a potential to keep us up for the rest of the night.
Right.
So we can circumvent that by doing the other activities. And we have to play the mind games with our own mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So,
it.
so this the same person, Vijay Makija, has asked this. I think you've answered this before, is 5 to 6 hours of sleep on weekdays and 7 to 8 hours on weekends okay for a person in their 40s? So that was the go-getter 40 something person that you were talking about.
That's it. And like we're in that age group, we are going to rule the world, right? So we think we can do it all, but it is non-negotiable. There is no making up the sleep on the weekend. We can't think like that. We've got to make it a priority, because if we lose our health, we lose it all. And
Yeah,
that's where we have to make the investment. The
yeah,
health is our stock, right? We want that stock to grow and become extremely valuable. So we've got to protect everything in that investment.
yeah,
And that becomes sleep. When you're older in life or later on in life and your memory is not working, what good is it that you work so hard in your life and you've lost it all?
yeah,
So it
yeah.
is non-negotiable. You cannot compensate for it by sleeping on the weekend, although you may try, but there, you cannot make up for it on all the damage that's being done during the week.
Yeah, yeah. Angela, we've gone way past time, but I think we could talk on and on and on. But I'm going to have to stop now. And thank you so very much. I think this has been so informative by all the comments that we've got on the Facebook page. Very informative, very informative. Thank you. Thank you. So thank you so very much, Angela. And we'll do another topic again very soon. I really, really appreciate you coming. Any last thoughts on sleep before we sign off?
So like we let sleep not be a dream. That's the key.
Yeah,
Okay. We don't
yeah,
dream of sleeping. We actually sleep and then we dream. Okay. So that is the key. And nobody should ever take away your time from sleeping. You protect that time. It is a
prioritize,
necessity.
prioritize.
It is our royalty and it's free. We don't have to pay for it, but we will pay for the price of it if
Yeah,
we let it go. Right? These are the simple pleasures in life that we are not taking seriously, but it's
yeah,
the one that we need the most
yeah.
is our sleep hygiene and our sleep. So with that being said, I think what you're doing, Sheila, is amazing for your community, and I wish you the best of luck to continue to empower, to educate the masses of people that follow you and your community. And congratulations for all that you do for the Indian Society of Lifestyle Medicine as well in India. You're
Thank you
doing
so much.
fantastic.
Yeah, thank you so much, Angela. And I think we can do it together. I mean, you are certainly a part of ISLM. Looking forward to having you officially in ISLM when these issues are sorted out with the website. Thank you again. And we will meet again. Thank you all for joining us. And I hope that you all have a really good night's sleep tonight. If you practice all the tips that Angela has given you, I'm sure you will. And it happens gradually. It may not happen overnight, of course, but do try and practice all the tips that she's already given you. Thank you all, and bye-bye, and have a really good night. Thank you,
Thank,
Angela.
thank you,
Thank you.
Sheila. Bye-bye.
Bye.